Well, hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of ND and ABA with Martin and Dan. I'm your host, Martin. Alongside of me is my co-host, Dan. So tell me, Dan, I know we've had a couple weeks off to de-stress, and I mean, like with me, I had my finals finally done and did a lot of things. But how was your time off?
Oh, it was great, Martin, to get a little bit of time to get some perspective and just look around, take a few breaths. I'm out here in Hawaii, so of course I was hitting the beach a little bit myself, and of course just doing my best to advocate for everybody in the time off as well. For those of you who don't know, the ABAI convention occurred May 25th through the 27th this year. And we also had a lot of interesting perspectives in the news lately. We are approaching the final decision on the FDA ban against electric shock devices for contingent electric skin shocks in Massachusetts, which is a extremely important issue to us all. So, though I was relaxing and enjoying the beach, I want everyone to know my heart is with everybody fighting every day to make a better world for people with disabilities, for people who are oppressed, marginalized, for minority communities. And I wanted to make sure that we just had a special guest today to really help us guys who are maybe newer in the field to just knock this one out of the park. So I couldn't be happier to have Mandy Ralston, Amanda Ralston from Nonbinary Solutions with us on the show. And it's just such an honor to have you as a guest, Mandy. Thank you for being here. How you doing today?
Good enough. I'm good enough. Yeah, it's good to be Friday. Yeah.
Absolutely. Good to be Friday always. And I totally understand what you mean. Uh, good enough, right? Good enough.
Yeah.
And by the way, I did want to congratulate you. I know that you're recently put on the board of directors for the Faulkner Morgan Archive in Kentucky. And yeah, I wonder if perhaps you might want to start off on a bit of a lighter note and tell us about that today.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I just went to a special event last night at the Kentucky Theater, the historic Kentucky Theater here in downtown Lexington. They had a premiere of Under the Cross, which is a follow-up documentary to a documentary done through the Faulkner Morgan Archive basically 30 years ago. It was called The Last Gospel of the Pagan Babies. And so Henry Faulkner is a very famous or infamous, whichever way you want to look at it, gay man that was here in Lexington for several decades, starting in the 30s and 40s, I believe. And, he just really lived an audacious and out loud life. And what the Faulkner Morgan Archive is this collection of artwork and writing and ephemera that Bob Morgan, who is one of the co-founders, has collected over the years based on his relationship with Henry Faulkner. And it really is an incredible body of work, but also it goes with an oral history of that period of time and activism. And activism basically was Henry living out loud at that point, just really being who he was for all the public to see. And so, yeah, highly recommend you guys look it up on the internet. I've posted a couple, social media posts about it at this point, so they're pretty easy to find. So.
Oh, yeah. And for those of you who haven't seen Mandy on social media, please check her out. The more I read about her work, the more amazed I am. And the thing about our show, ND and ABA with Martin and Dan, is we are here to promote diversity, equity, inclusion above all else, among other things, right? Neurodiverse perspectives and the best practices for the future of our field of ABA. So I'd like to personally thank you for all the good work you've been doing for years and years. I know perhaps that you recently got more recognition, but as you say on your channel, don't call it a comeback. You've been here a long time and you've just been kicking some A double snakes. And this is why we want you on the show. Martin, I know you
Yeah,
haven't had a chance to meet Mandy yet.
no
Uh,
worries.
I wonder if you might have any questions for her to get us started.
Yeah, definitely. So my question is for for the first one, let's just say, can you tell us a little bit about your story and how you got into the field?
Oh yeah. I've had to tell this story a lot. So when I was in my senior year of undergrad college at Center College down here in Danville, Kentucky, I had my abnormal quote unquote psychology book tell me that autism was as prevalent as 1 in every 10,000 individuals. There was exactly 2 paragraphs in this entire textbook about autism, and so that was the prevalence. And then the second thing that it told me was that the gold standard of treatment for kids on the spectrum at that point was something called applied behavior analysis. And so I started doing some research. I intended to write a paper about it. And I found 7 families here in Lexington that were sharing the cost of flying a consultant out from California once a quarter to use their family members and college students to sort of cobble together these ABA programs to do early intervention with these kids. So there were 6 boys and 1 girl. Of course, these were all people that had the means and resources to do this type of program and fly that consultant out from California. But yeah, I started working with those 7 kids after I wrote that paper, and they were all so very different. And I really just got hooked on helping kids to communicate, right? That were struggling in one way, shape, or form. All of them had difficulties with communication. Some were non-vocal or non-verbal functionally, and others were highly verbal and yet struggled with communication on different levels. So it was just immediately interesting to me, and I've always liked kids. So it just felt like a natural progression of where I would want to be with my psychology degree. So
Okay,
Wow, I
awesome.
really resonate with that actually. For those of us in the field, whether somebody has a physical verbal voice or not, it's just so vitally important, especially today, this month, even this week, to raise those voices up. Again, some people cannot even speak for themselves, though others can and choose not to because there is a slightly subversive environment out there in the modern day. And we were hesitant even to bring up the ABI convention. So for you, Mandy, we will bring it up because it's important for you as well as some of our other friends. Shout out to Carissa Knows Behavior, at Jared Van, at the Mystic Analyst, and many other strong voices for taking up that gosh darn space and making sure that it is used to raise awareness for those who haven't had a strong voice in those conventions prior. And I know your presentation on LGBTQ plus ABA services or ABA strategies to help those in that community was really important. And you mentioned the first Pride was a riot. Just the fact alone, though, that it is relevant that that is maybe one of the few prides occurring is, again, it's very disheartening, but it's also encouraging to us because it inspired me to have you on the show and really just get the word out here and let everyone know what's going on nationwide in the United States and hopefully let everyone in the world know so they can help us silly Americans get our heads screwed on straight a little bit.
But yeah, I've got a few thoughts on your response there. Like one, one of the reasons I named this company Nonbinary Solutions, first of all, is because people are not black and white; they're shades of gray. And in order to treat them properly or support them properly, you have to see the full magnitude of their humanity. But secondly, I get to inform people. A lot of people don't know this, but individuals on the spectrum are up to 6 times more likely to not identify with the gender they were assigned at birth. And so that's part of the reason that I named the company Non-Binary Solutions. So if you care about individuals on the spectrum, you also now have to care about people that are gender nonconforming, trans, or non-binary because there's a VIN overlap there, right? So it's a way to create empathy. Yeah, the ABAI thing, I mean, I know that is wrought with controversy and for good reason. I get it. I'll say the same thing about that situation that I say about the sort of derision and division within the autistic self advocate groups, and what they have to say about ABA and so on and so forth, is what I've been preaching for the last 2 years essentially is just because you share a label or a trait with a group of people does not mean that you get to speak for that whole group, right?
Right.
So whatever you're advocating for, you're advocating for yourself. And you've got to let other people have the freedom to make their own choices as well. And moreover, what I see in social media these days is that it's a very binary attitude about everything. Things are either black and white. You either have to like it or dislike it, right? You either support it or you cancel it. And that benefits nobody really, right? Because it's always more complicated than that. And frankly, most people have an opinion about almost everything on the internet, and rarely have they done the work to be educated to have that opinion. So, so part of my message here is like, maybe calm down, right? We don't have to have a hashtag for everything. So there's nuance, right? And you can't just cancel and move on. You've got to do the internal work to change things from the inside. So.
Certainly. And I'm really glad you brought up autism self-advocacy groups all over, but particularly the Autism Self-Advocacy Network. ASAN has definitely been disseminating some research for people who don't know about certain issues related to, for instance, the Judge Rotenburg Center and other very important ethical issues regarding maybe financial priorities in the field worldwide. And it's important for this group to be doing the advocacy they are outside of social media as well. I know there's a hashtag for everything, though I think it's important for maybe our viewers to actually just go on a website now and again and actually read maybe a less censored opinion, but read more, and always just keep reading more. And this is important because it actually will beget some sort of professionality related to it. I know I mentioned Judge Rotenburg, I mentioned Stop the Shock, though the FDA has not finalized their ruling yet. The latest I've heard were several senators reached out on May 28th to the FDA actually to thank them for the efforts they're putting into supporting that ban or to proposing the ban and outlining all of the financial outcomes that could occur if the ban were to be enacted. One of those senators, including Bernie Sanders. So some very powerful voices are speaking up now on the behalf of the autistic community and those with disabilities. And when we see this happening, I have to say that, it's not entirely a result of social media. It's really a result of people doing the research, doing the work, reading the articles, and contacting these representatives, letting them know how they feel, and letting the representatives take all that data and make a database decision, which is kind of what we're all about here in ABA, and making sure that powers that be understand it's not just one voice. It's a collective of voices that now it's vital to represent with even our senators, for instance, our elected representatives in the government, as well as in these large private institutions that we see in not only Massachusetts, but all over the world and all over the United States.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Love that indeed.
Definitely. Martin, I do want to take a quick second to congratulate you. If you guys don't know Martin, he just won a gold medal in the long jump in the Special Olympics.
Yeah.
That was one of
the
highlights. Oh, check it.
Got it.
So good.
Thank you.
How was that for you, Martin? Would you mind telling us a little bit about that before we all burst into tears?
Oh, no, it was fun. A lot of people were confused as to why I didn't celebrate a whole lot. I mean, I tried to stay humble because it's like you got those other kids there that weren't able to medal, and I was like, you know what? It's just I'd rather celebrate on my own with family. It's just like for my first ever event, and for that to win gold, I was like, wow, that was something else.
That's incredible. Well done.
Thank you. Definitely.
Well done. And you know what? It just made me so inspired just to see regardless of what's going on in the world, you doing your best, as you always do, to try hard and make a positive outcome for
Yeah.
not only autistic people, but just people who are wanting to have a voice worldwide, right?
Right.
When they see you, like you said many times, it inspires them, imbues them with the hope and the courage to be themselves, to speak up, to do the things they like to do, and to just enjoy their life a little bit more. And I think
Right. Right.
that most of all, I think maybe that's why we're here at NDNABA.
Right.
We want to create that world. We want to create that field of ABA as well. I know that
Yeah.
I had a lot of questions planned.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know Mandy's work, she's actually very successful in our field, and I look up to her in many ways. And one being the advocacy, but another being as an LLC owner in this field. I've seen that you've had a lot of success, Mandy, with your organizations. And I wonder if you might want to maybe let our viewers know how that's done and how you're able to accomplish such business success as well as your activism as well.
Oh, I mean, a lot of success comes from a lot of failures, right? Like I've got oodles of data on how not to do it, and so it's I think it's a Japanese proverb. It's get knocked down 19 times, get up 20, right? That's success. And so that's basically what my last 25 years has been like. You know, I started out my first clinic here in Kentucky. Me and three other women founded that in 1999. We grew that to 125 clients and 85 employees in 3 years. None of us were business majors. And so for the price of a Harvard education, I got a real life experience in business. And so learned a lot of things the hard way the first go around. And then I spent the next 4 years driving all over Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, for anybody that could pay out of pocket for my services as a consultant, right? Because there was no insurance mandate for most of those states for a long, long time. And then I decided that I couldn't control quality the way that I wanted to with all these independent contractors all over these different locations. And so reluctantly, I started my second clinic in 2007 and grew that much more slowly based on the data that I had from the first one. And was much more successful with that particular clinic and was able to get an exit in 2019. So I was perfect timing because I sold the clinic in May of 2019, and 6 months later I didn't have to pay payroll in a pandemic, so that was pretty amazing. So yeah, a lot of it's opportunity and good timing. After I got into the larger organization that bought my clinic, I learned about clinical decision support software while I was there. And so that's what got me the idea to start Nonbinary Solutions when I left there in 2022, I think. So yeah, now I think being ADHD and neurospicy helps the way that my brain operates. Intellectual decorator crab. I'm constantly like picking up new information and like, okay, I'll save that for later. I'll put this over here. I'll take that and look at this and this and that. And so I'm able to make an amalgamation of lots of different ideas that I've seen in different places. And that's my creative process. And so that's where the notion for building this software, which is called Noetic, came through. And so it's really like a clinical co-pilot for other clinicians to use and help them have digital bumper rails as they're going through the treatment planning process and understanding this very particular person in front of them and what that person needs individually. So yeah, it's
We
just
will
been a
definitely
little
put
bit
the link for
combination of
Noetic.
like good.
Oh yeah, you value that quality over quantity, which is something that I know we all want to do that in our field. We all got into this field, I believe, for the right reasons. And sometimes, of course, there are these like financial limitations that make it difficult to value the quality we want to see over the quantity of services that an ABA organization, let's say, needs to stay alive. Though, you driving around, doing the private practice and making it work, across states is really, it's just inspiring to me. I only wish I could drive around across states here in Hawaii, but virtually, however you guys are doing things, using your voice on social media can also be a tool to raise a private organization that values quality over quantity. And not that there's anything wrong with public organizations, but I do want to take a moment just to raise some news that shocked me today and made me, again, maybe filled with a bit of emotions that I'm trying to control now. But I want to extend my severe condolences to Eileen Lamb, our last guest that we had on the show. I had heard today that even though she has tried so hard to advocate for her son, who is on the spectrum, that he, due to the financial cost of helping him, was actually kicked out of his ABA services program. And I know it's even maybe a slight risk for me to bring this up, but I just can't bite the tongue on this one. It's just, it saddens me to see the finances getting in the way again of the quality of care. And the reason I'm not afraid to bring it up is because I know that this is really against the ethical conduct code that I swore to as a BCBA. And ultimately, it's it's against what I consider to be the Hippocratic principle and the Hippocratic oath to do no harm, right? And if you're going to, a lot of times, start services and start support for a family, for a person, at that point, it does become a responsibility that you have to maintain that level of support to help them, with that balance you're providing. For instance, when that's removed, in this case, it really leaves people feeling like they're out of luck, like they are in a metaphorical sense falling, and they have no one there to catch them, to support them. And so again, I really admire all the work you're doing and the fact that you have Noetic out there to help us kind of all figure out how we can do it in any way possible ourselves and organize ABA and organize our values into a usable and successful service is something that is just so invaluable to the current day and age in May 2024, this year, this week and today, especially. There's a lot of things to focus on and a lot of things that could both discourage and encourage people. And this is one of the things that I find encouraging the Noetic software and your work as well with Nonbinary Solutions and your recent success, your popularity. It's evidence to me that we can do it. We can create this field of dreams that I've talked about before. I hate to always quote baseball movies, but I was a little leaguer myself, and I just can't help it.
You're killing me, Smalls. You're killing me.
Oh man, you got me there. You got me. Martin, you can tell
Yeah.
I'm getting a bit loose cannon Dan over here. Would you have any extra questions that you might want to
Yeah.
throw in the mix?
I actually have two more questions written up for Mandy. The first one, with your role at Faulkner Morgan Archive, how do you see your role impacting the community?
Well, as Daniel mentioned, I've got a pretty good social media presence at this point, so I think that I'll be able to help bring more awareness to the archive. Again, the role of the archive is not just about Henry and his history, but uplifting other LGBTQ plus voices here in Kentucky and really having an oral history around preserving the culture of the community that we have. So I'm very honored that they asked me to be part of it. So.
That is awesome. Now, for my last question, we're going to switch gears here a bit, and this will be a two-part question. So, with the current state of Pride festivals, like, how are they? Because I know with everything, like, they're evolving, especially with all the social and political changes. And what do you think is the most significant challenge that these festivals face in today's society?
Oh, geez. So I am the chairperson of Queer Kentucky, which is a nonprofit entity that has a publication about uplifting Appalachian and queer voices here in Kentucky as well.
Mhm.
And so we've been talking about the various prides that are coming up. Um, I think with all the barrage of anti-LGBTQ legislation that's been just introduced, even if it hasn't been passed, right?
Right.
It casts a shadow on the community, and you know, uh, it suggests a wrongness that isn't correct, right?
Right.
Just by virtue of the fact that they introduced a bill to address anything related to our lives.
Right.
And what's interesting about it is that um, the actual majority of voters within these communities don't actually support the legislation. The politicians
Mhm.
are doing
Right.
this as a way, again, as a red herring to all the other issues that they're not actually attending to, that they probably
Right.
should. I hope I can
Yeah.
say on the show. And so yeah, it creates uh, an uh, uh, an arena of shame that should not be there for these
Right.
types of
Right.
events, right? And
Mhm.
it creates a binary. Again, it's a false dichotomy. This notion that there are only two sides to some issue and you have to pick one.
Right.
So I think it's inherently dangerous that you pit one group of people against another group of people. I mean, that's
Mhm.
propaganda by definition, right?
Right.
So yeah, I think we're obviously a very resilient group of individuals.
Mhm.
We've done a lot of our own advocacy over the last 70 years, and one of the things that I like to talk about in my non-binary thinking presentation that I do, I sort of take people through the history of sort of psychology and psychiatry in America and how homosexuality was originally part of the DSM-1 back in 1952. And it
Right.
wasn't until 1972 that a psychiatrist dressed up in costume named Dr. Henry Anonymous got up in front of all of his colleagues at the annual conference and said, "I am a psychiatrist and I am a homosexual." And
Mhm.
that statement on the heels of Stonewall in 1969 was really what got the conversation started internally at the APA to declassify homosexuality as a mental illness. And I think there's
Mhm.
a lot of parallels between what we're seeing about trans rights and non-binary people. And that's
Mhm.
the situation for us as behavior analysts in psychology and psychiatry again. But
Mhm.
also, I think that same conversation, that template is very easily applied to the autism and neurodivergent spectrum as well, right? Because the
Right.
understanding of what autism was 40 years ago is completely different than what the understanding is today. And so imagine what it's going to be like in 20 more years. And I think you just have to have that historical context to appreciate that there are points in time where things are deemed different, wrong, etc. That does
Right.
not mean that it's correct.
Right.
Absolutely. And I hate to segue us here, but I do think this is relevant to both of you and to me as well. In a lot of ways, there is a context in which masking occurs for people when they believe that there's this arena of shame surrounding the things they do, they like, they want to pursue. And that arena is, I guess, that is the thing that we're most against. Nobody wants to make a binary environment where people are pinned against people. But I think for us all together to realize that we can stand up against this arena of shame, and we can stand up against shame and shaming in general, will do
Mhm.
us all, both in autistic communities and LGBTQ communities, and just in communities, um, a lot of good. And for those of you, who don't know me, I myself, I'm a post theater boy. I was the drama club president in my high school, and I know that I didn't fit in high school, and
Mhm.
I know also that I never ever would be where I am today. I wouldn't be on this show in front of you without this LGBTQ plus community. Who, for instance, they just took me shopping. They told me that I had to stop clashing my colors so much, and gave me a sense of style. And
Mhm.
look at this. Look how much clashing colors I still have on the screen. You can imagine how I was with zero help oh my gosh, I was like floating out to sea on a barge. Oh my gosh, I compare myself to Tom Hanks in Castaway, without my LGBTQ plus friends who helped me, just took
Well
me to
said.
the shop. Yeah, I was like Wilson. I was honestly Wilson was better dressed than me in high school until I was about 16 years old. If you guys could imagine me then. But
Amazing.
you know, through that community and through the bonds that people share in supporting each other when they know there is that arena of shame, through the protection that people give each other, you know, I came to realize that they are there for us. You know, I mean that the LGBTQ plus community is there for everyone else as well. And it's a community that deserves the respect of everybody, and it's a community that commits much time and is valuable to the world as a whole in terms of just defending civil rights as well as having a great time and looking amazing while doing it. You know, I know that maybe that not everybody, you know, cares all about those things, but some people do. And, you know, I have to shout out to the people who helped me get to where I am today. I just couldn't leave that out. And, you know, the same goes, yeah, for those in autistic self-advocacy networks. I recently even said in one of the episodes, hey, if you have a problem, come find me, come call me up, come break my heart, you know, come tell me all the problems with ABA, and let me grapple with those. Don't let you know, parents, you know, who are trying to best their children grapple. Don't let people, you know, in those services grapple. You know, and to some extent that actually occurred. And I want to let those people know I'm not offended. And there's many things that were said, you know, that opened my eyes, that helped me.
Sure.
Some things are hard to hear, but
Sure.
as clinicians, we put ourselves in that space and we're there to hear it. We're there to take the data, and we're there to grapple with these tough choices in order to make the best field going forward. So shout out to everybody for doing that. You know, and you Mandy, and you Martin, and you know, and Eileen Lamb, and Brian Middleton, bearded behaviorist, and all the people who had the courage to step into ABAI this May and take up that gosh darn mother trucking space. You know, you guys did it. You guys were there, and I saw you. I was in Hawaii, but I saw you all, and we all saw, and even the big dogs who were running the thing saw. And you know, no matter what they say, you guys did it, and you should. Here it is. Pat yourself on the back. You guys, I'm proud of everybody. I'm proud to be associated with these communities. I'm proud to represent them and to make space for them on our show. And my advice to everybody, I suppose, would be to just do your best to make space for others, right? Like you said, Mandy, it's not only about one person advocating for themselves. Sometimes when you do self-advocacy, we may forget that we're advocating, you know, just for ourselves, or it's one person advocating for their perspective. And there are a spectrum of perspectives in all these communities that need to be taken into account.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? I think that we might be close to running out of time. So I did want to make sure that you have the floor just for a second to freely raise space for anything that you've got going on, Mandy. And please let us know what we can look forward to.
Yeah, no, I mean, everybody can check out nonbinarysolutions.com. You can see a variety of places that I'm on tour running my mouth on a variety of different subjects. The software Noetic, it's KNOWETIC.ai. That is where you'll be able to find out about the software that we're releasing. So we've been doing our internal testing this week. You'll definitely see a big announcement coming soon about the availability publicly, probably within the next 2 weeks. And yeah, I think just everybody continue to hold space and to give grace for themselves and others to make mistakes and continue to learn, because that's how we grow. And yeah, just
You know what?
hashtag it's not binary.
Hashtag it's not binary. And I've just decided that is the name of this episode. Everybody, make that space and give that grace. All right. And we want to leave it out on that. I'm so happy to have been here with you guys. I want to say aloha and, mahalos for being here, both of you. And Martin,
Definitely.
you too. I know no one really, maybe this is your show. And so perhaps nobody thanks you enough. But thank you
That's
for
totally
giving,
fine.
yeah, but you've given us that space, right?
Yeah.
And that's important. You should really be proud of yourself. And, I'm proud to be on your team as always, man.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Yeah. Got some fun things coming up pretty soon. I applied for 3 autism conferences here in the US. Waiting to hear back from them in Columbus, Houston, and South Carolina. And I feel like this is my calling to really help those who are nervous to share their story, kind of give them hope, like, you know what, share your story. Everything's going to be okay. And so, yeah, that's kind of my plan. And I'm excited to keep everyone updated.
Great job,
And
Martin.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And then I got the this Olympic Summer Games coming up at Santa Clara University, June 28th to the 30th. So that one's the all the state of California coming down to Santa Clara University for that. So it's going to be intense, and I'm excited to spend my time with other athletes and really root for them. So
So much
Definitely.
fun.
And
yeah,
before we go, I do want to let everyone know we had such a great season here on ND and ABA, and thank you all for listening and watching and supporting us. We are coming up on our season finale, so make sure you check us out next week. We have some powerful guests ready to come on, and we are gonna really close up nicely just to make sure we all can get through the summer and come back in the
yep,
next school year imbued with that strength and inspiration that Martin gives us all. And so thank you again, Martin. Thank you,
yep,
Mandy. And to everybody, aloha and mahalos.
definitely. All right, bye everyone.
Bye.
Bye, guys.